Long ago, in the cradle of ancient civilization, a man named Abraham stood as a beacon of unwavering faith. He was a man chosen by God, tasked with a mission that would shape the destinies of millions. His story, told across Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, teaches us profound lessons about trust, sacrifice, and unity. Abraham's journey begins with a simple, yet monumental command: leave your homeland and go to the land I will show you. Imagine the courage it took to abandon everything familiar, his home, his kin, his comforts, and venture into the unknown, guided only by faith. It is in this act of surrender that we find one of life's greatest truths. When we trust in God, we embark on a journey greater than ourselves. As Abraham journeyed with his wife, Sarah, and his nephew, Lot, he faced trials that tested his faith. Once, during a famine, they sought refuge in Egypt. Fearing for his life because of Sarah's beauty, Abraham devised a plan, telling the Egyptians she was his sister. This led to complications with Pharaoh, but God intervened, protecting Sarah and ensuring their safe departure. This story reminds us that even great figures like Abraham were human, grappling with fear, doubt, and the vulnerabilities that define our earthly existence. When Abraham feared for his life in Egypt, his decision to conceal the truth about Sarah revealed his humanity, a moment of hesitation in an otherwise steadfast faith. And yet, in this imperfection, God's grace prevailed, orchestrating a resolution that protected Abraham and Sarah, while reaffirming his promise. This is the extraordinary nature of divine mercy. It does not demand flawless faith, only a willing heart. In Abraham's story, we find a mirror for our own struggles. How often do we falter, questioning our decisions or doubting our worthiness to carry out God's will? Yet, just as he did for Abraham, God steps into our stories, not to condemn, but to redeem. This redemption is not merely a correction of our errors. It is the transformation of our shortcomings into stepping stones for growth. As C.S. Lewis wrote, failures are fingerposts on the road to achievement. Our moments of weakness are not ends in themselves but signposts pointing us toward his greater purpose. When we embrace this perspective, our fears and doubts lose their power to paralyze us. Instead, they become opportunities to experience God's strength in our weakness. As Paul writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you. For my power is made perfect in weakness." Abraham's journey reminds us that faith is not about achieving perfection, it is about trusting in a perfect God who can use our imperfection to achieve his glory. In this truth, we find hope and the courage to walk boldly, even in uncertainty, knowing that God's grace is the constant thread weaving our failures into a tapestry of triumph. God's promise to Abraham was extraordinary, despite his and Sarah's advanced age and their lifelong struggle with infertility. God declared that Abraham would become the father of many nations. At first, this promise seemed incomprehensible. Sarah herself laughed at the idea, unable to fathom how their barren household could suddenly be transformed into a lineage of nations. Yet, amid the doubt and human impossibility, Abraham believed. This belief was not the absence of questions or struggles but a choice to trust God despite them. Then, the miraculous happened. In their old age, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, the child of promise. The sheer joy of this moment was unparalleled. Isaac represented not only the fulfillment of God's promise but also the embodiment of Abraham and Sarah's long-standing hope and faith. Their hearts overflowed with gratitude, and life seemed complete. Isaac was the living proof of God's faithfulness and the beginning of a legacy that would endure for generations. However, the journey of faith does not end with fulfillment, it often deepens with greater trials. God's next command to Abraham was both shocking and incomprehensible. He asked Abraham to sacrifice his beloved son, Isaac, on Mount Moriah. This request struck at the very core of Abraham's faith, challenging everything he had understood about God's promise. How could the same God who gave Isaac now ask for his life? Abraham's journey to Mount Moriah was a journey of silent anguish and resolute trust. Rising early in the morning, he took Isaac, 2 servants, and the wood for the sacrifice. The Bible tells us that for 3 days, Abraham traveled, each step heavy with the weight of what he was about to do. Yet, throughout this journey, there is no record of complaint or hesitation. Abraham's faith was steadfast, rooted in the belief that God's plans are higher than human understanding. As they neared the mountain, Isaac, unaware of the divine test unfolding, innocently asked, "The fire and wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Genesis chapter 22:7. Abraham's response was both profound and prophetic. God himself will provide the lamb. This statement reflects Abraham's deep trust that even in this seemingly impossible situation, God would make a way. On the summit of Mount Moriah, Abraham built an altar, arranged the wood, and bound Isaac. Imagine the anguish in Abraham's heart as he looked into the eyes of his son, the son he had waited a century to hold. Yet, with unshaken obedience, Abraham raised the knife, prepared to carry out God's command. At that precise moment, an angel of the Lord called out, "Abraham! Abraham, do not lay a hand on the boy." Abraham stopped, his heart pounding with relief and awe. Nearby, he saw a ram caught in the thicket, provided by God as a substitute for Isaac. In that instant, the test was complete, and Abraham's faith was vindicated. He named the place Yahweh-Yireh, meaning the Lord will provide, a name that continues to echo through history as a testament to God's faithfulness. This moment on Mount Moriah is one of the most profound in Scripture, celebrated across Christianity, Islam, and Judaism as the pinnacle of faith and surrender. It teaches us that true faith is not merely intellectual agreement but total trust in God. Even when His ways are beyond our comprehension, Abraham trusted God not only with his life but also with the life of his beloved son, believing that God's promises would stand regardless of the circumstances. The Apostle Paul reflects on this in Hebrews chapter 11:19, stating that Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead. Such was his confidence in God's power and faithfulness. Through this act, Abraham became the father of faith, setting a precedent for believers to trust God in all things. Abraham's story resonates deeply with us because it mirrors the trials we face in our own faith journeys. There are times when God's plans seem confusing or even painful. We may not understand why certain sacrifices are required of us or why the path we are on seems so difficult. Yet, like Abraham, we are called to trust. The story of Abraham and Isaac also foreshadows the ultimate act of divine provision, the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Just as God provided a ram in Isaac's place, He provided His Son to atone for the sins of humanity. This connection reminds us that God's love for us is immeasurable and that His plans always lead to redemption. As Proverbs chapter 3:5 encourages us, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Abraham's life demonstrates the power of this trust, showing us that when we surrender to God's will, even in the face of incomprehensible trials, we discover the depth of His provision and the greatness of His glory. Abraham's journey is not merely a historical account. It is a living invitation to all of us. It challenges us to trust God with every aspect of our lives, to believe in His promises, and to walk in obedience, even when the path is unclear. Like Abraham, we are called to step forward in faith, knowing that God is both our guide and our provider. Let us remember that the trials we face are not barriers to God's blessings but bridges to a deeper relationship with Him. Through faith, we can overcome fear, embrace surrender, and find peace in the assurance that God's plans for us are good, perfect, and filled with eternal promise. A legacy of unity and interconnectedness. Abraham's lineage, divided between Isaac and Ishmael, is a testament to the breadth and depth of his legacy. Isaac, born to Sarah, became the patriarch of the Israelites, whose lineage would give rise to the 12 tribes of Israel and ultimately to Jesus Christ, central to Christianity. Ishmael, born to Hagar, was blessed by God to become the forefather of the Arab nations, with his descendants playing a pivotal role in the birth of Islam through the Prophet Muhammad. While their paths diverged geographically and culturally, the two sons carried the enduring legacy of Abraham's faith and the promises of God. This shared ancestry holds profound significance for our world today. In an age where religious and cultural differences often lead to division, Abraham's story reminds us of our interconnectedness. Though Christians, Jews, and Muslims may approach their faith differently, they are bound by a common spiritual heritage rooted in Abraham's covenant with God. This shared foundation is a powerful symbol of unity, urging us to see beyond our differences and to embrace the humanity and divinity that connect us all. The Quran captures this beautifully in Surah Al-Anbiya 21:92. Indeed, this nation of yours is one nation, and I am your Lord, so worship me. This verse is a call to recognize the oneness of humanity under the sovereignty of God. It reminds us that, despite our individual paths and expressions of faith, we are part of a singular, divine tapestry woven by the Creator. Throughout history, the division between Isaac and Ishmael's descendants has sometimes been a source of conflict. Yet, their story also offers a vision of reconciliation. Both sons were blessed by God, both were given promises, and both were integral to fulfilling Abraham's destiny as the father of many nations. This is a profound reminder that diversity within God's creation is not a cause for division but a reflection of His glory and wisdom. In our modern, fractured world, Abraham's story invites us to rediscover our shared heritage. It challenges us to build bridges of understanding, to foster dialogue, and to celebrate the common values of faith, compassion, and unity that bind us together. As we honor Abraham's legacy, we affirm that our shared history is not just a record of the past but a foundation for a future marked by peace and mutual respect. Abraham's story is a timeless testament to trust, resilience, and the unwavering pursuit of God's purpose. It speaks directly to the heart of our own journeys, reminding us that faith is not just a belief but a way of living, an active trust in a divine plan far greater than we can imagine. In times of personal struggle or collective uncertainty, Abraham's life becomes a guiding light, showing us how to navigate the unknown with steadfast faith. First, we are called to trust in God's plan, even when it is unclear or seems beyond our understanding. Like Abraham, who left his homeland without knowing his destination, we often walk through seasons of uncertainty. Yet, God assures us in Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." When we surrender to His will, uncertainty transforms into purpose, and every step we take leads us closer to His promise. Second, Abraham's story teaches us to embrace unity. As the spiritual father of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, Abraham's legacy reminds us that diversity is not a barrier but a blessing. Our shared heritage as God's children calls us to respect and understand one another. When we embrace unity, we fulfill God's desire for harmony, becoming peacemakers in a divided world. Finally, Abraham exemplifies the power of perseverance through trials. His journey was not free of hardship, yet his faith never wavered. As James chapter 1:12 beautifully declares, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life." Abraham's perseverance brought blessings that resonated through generations. A legacy of faith that inspires us to remain steadfast, trusting that God's promises are always fulfilled. As we reflect on Abraham's journey, let us strive to embody his faith in our lives. Let us be bridge builders, fostering understanding and love across divides. Let us face our trials with courage, trusting that God walks beside us. In the words of C.S. Lewis, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." Like Abraham, we are called to step into the unknown, to trust, and to leave a legacy of faith and unity for those who follow.